Maybe you can provide us just a little bit of background as to what the research is saying about how these can be supportive for people.
There are tons and tons of papers now for decades. Ketamine was first introduced back in 1970s for an anesthetic used in high dosages and operative procedures. So the old application of it's been around. We know what this drug does. We know the safety limits. It's on the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. But what happened recently is fascinating. In 2019, it got FDA approved. I remember I had a patient in 2018 who was talking to me about ketamine, and I was thinking, this sounds like a drug of abuse. Like, what are we talking about here? Even though it was medically accepted in my field in mental health and psychiatry, it certainly wasn't as recent as 2018. 2019, the drug got FDA approval for depression, for treatment-resistant depression, which is the most, um, it's the hardest to treat. It's saying that we've tried a lot of things and we're still feeling depressed. It's people who have deep suicidality. It has the indication for major depression disorder with suicidal thoughts. So this comes around, and all of a sudden you have FDA-approved clinical research showing, as opposed to antidepressants that show about maybe a 30% remission, 30% of people get better on average with an antidepressant. This was showing about 60% of people getting better, 70, 80% actually showing improvement. And better meaning their depression's gone. So when I learned about this research, I dove in and I started to just really apply the treatment in our practices in our offices. Fast forward 4 or 5 years later, we started a company just based on at-home ketamine therapy, and it's a model that now has become a $1 billion industry because not for any reason other than it's working. Right? People are actually getting better. They're realizing change. I now teach this. I'm a professor of psychedelic medicine at UNLV. So in a program where we're really highlighting some of the cutting edge applications, we're now getting to teach our future psychiatrists modalities that maybe when they even started the program 4 years ago they thought was crazy. It's happening that quickly. And the key concept of why is this neuroplastic change, this ability for one application to increase neuronal connections in the brain. If you think about the brain as a circuitry, sometimes like a computer, it slows down. It gets kind of clustered, and you have to defragment your computer and your software, right? You have to actually look at the hardware and realize that if you're not taking care of it, it can rust, it can get clogged. You got to get the dust out. And so similarly, our brain has these patterns that sometimes the connections aren't strong. Sometimes the connections are overrun and we kind of burn out. We're worrying and trying so much to be ambitious and successful and worry and care for our family and all these things. And those pathways are getting overused. And then we suffer from anxiety and we suffer from insomnia because it's not just the thoughts or the feelings or the situations, it's actual circuitry in our brain that's being mishandled in repetition or lack of use. Ketamine serves to fertilize the brain and help someone repair some of these connections. And by doing so, we psychologically see things a little bit differently because our brain now is thinking outside of the norm. You think about a very nice illustration a patient once told me was, it felt like through my anxiety and my depression, I just kept carving deeper and deeper into the ski slopes of my mind. Like I couldn't get out of these dark thoughts. I couldn't get out of these worries. And every time I tried to get out, the paths kept getting deeper. And ketamine, the patient explained, felt like fresh powder for the ski slopes of the brain. Like I got to just start over again. I got to see things not with so much subjective emotion and charge and trauma and baggage and experience, but almost from a childlike, curious perspective. And doing that for 30, 45 minutes in treatment can have lasting changes afterwards.